When my wife returned home at 3:26 a.m. with smeared lipstick and missing her wedding ring, I knew it wasn't just about the affair. What I discovered next sent me down a rabbit hole of corporate fraud, falsified drug trials, and a conspiracy that could kill thousands. The man my wife was sleeping with wasn't just her boss. He was a predator with a pattern, and I was about to become his worst nightmare. My name is Kyle Mercer. I'm 36 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had a rock-solid marriage. I've spent the last decade building my reputation as a graphic designer in Denver, working with everyone from startups to Fortune 500s. My wife Rita was my biggest supporter. At least that's what I believed until that night at the Aspen Ridge Hotel. The invitation came last minute. "Victor's launching the new antibiotics line tonight," Rita said, barely looking up from her makeup mirror. "You should come. It'll be good for you to meet my team." She'd been working as a pharmaceutical rep for Meridian Pharmaceuticals for just under a year, but the way she talked about it, you'd think she'd found her calling after years in the wilderness. I wore my best blazer, spent an extra 5 minutes on my hair, even put on the cologne she'd bought me for Christmas that I rarely used. I thought I was making an effort. What a joke. When we arrived, the ballroom was already buzzing. Men in tailored suits, women in cocktail dresses, everyone looking like they belonged on a magazine cover. Rita squeezed my hand once before being swallowed by the crowd, leaving me clutching a glass of mediocre champagne near a potted plant. "You're Rita's husband, right?" A woman with impossibly straight hair appeared beside me. "I'm Jenna. I've heard absolutely nothing about you." Her laugh was meant to make it a joke, but the truth stung. I scanned the room and spotted Rita across the floor, standing close to a tall man with salt and pepper hair. Victor Palmer, her boss. His hand rested on the small of her back like it belonged there. For 2 hours, I roamed that party like a ghost. Rita introduced me to exactly 3 people, each time with the same distracted smile. "This is Kyle. Not my husband Kyle, or Kyle the talented designer. Just Kyle like I was some random +1 she'd brought to fill space." At 9:42 p.m., I'd had enough. No dramatic exit, no scene. I just set down my 3rd glass of champagne and walked out. The valet gave me a sympathetic nod as he brought my car around. I was barely out of the parking lot when my phone buzzed. A text from Rita. "Please come back. Victor was asking about you." Not, "I miss you," or "Where did you go?" The message couldn't have been clearer if she'd written it in neon. "I only matter when Victor notices I'm gone." I turned off my phone and kept driving, the Denver skyline shrinking in my rearview mirror. I didn't know where I was going, but for the first time in months, I was making my own decision. I drove for hours that night, eventually ending up at Ray's 24-hour diner off Highway 70. I sat in a booth near the back, nursing a black coffee and watching truckers come and go. My phone had been off since I left the party, and I wasn't ready to turn it back on. Not yet. Around 2 a.m., I finally headed home, half expecting to find Rita waiting up, ready to tear into me for embarrassing her. Instead, the house was dark. Her car wasn't in the driveway. That told me everything I needed to know about where her priorities lay. I kicked off my shoes and crashed on the couch, our German Shepherd Max laying his head on my lap like he understood. "At least you're still loyal, buddy," I muttered, scratching behind his ears. The front door opened at 3:26 a.m. I didn't pretend to be asleep. I watched as Rita slipped off her heels in the foyer, freezing when she saw me sitting in the dark living room. "Jesus, Kyle, you scared me." She reached for the light switch, but I stopped her. "Don't. I could see just fine." My voice sounded strange, even to me, flat, emotionless. "Where were you?" She hesitated, purse clutched to her chest like a shield. "After you disappeared, we had to finish the presentation. Then the team went for drinks. Until 3:30 in the morning. It was an important night." The defensive edge in her voice was new. Victor landed the Brookfield account. We were celebrating. Must have been some celebration. I could smell it on her from across the room. Unfamiliar cologne mingling with alcohol and something else. Guilt, maybe. "Why did you leave like that?" she demanded, turning things around. Classic Rita move. "You embarrassed me." "I embarrassed you?" I stood up, blood pounding in my ears. "You spent the entire night pretending I didn't exist, then texted me to come back because your boss asked about me. Not because you wanted me there. Because Victor noticed. That's not fair. Where's your wedding ring, Rita?" Her hand flew to her bare finger, eyes widening slightly. I took it off to wash my hands at the restaurant. It must still be in my purse. The explanation came too quickly, too rehearsed. I've been designing things professionally for 15 years. I knew what looked authentic and what didn't. This was a bad forgery. You should get some sleep, I said finally. You must be exhausted after your celebration. I walked past her to the guest bedroom, Max following loyally at my heels. I closed the door, and for the first time since my father died, I felt tears burning behind my eyes. Not sad tears, angry ones. I didn't sleep. Instead, I fired up my laptop and did something I never thought I'd do. I looked up Rita's location history on our shared cloud account. If she was going to lie to my face, I needed to know what I was dealing with. The map confirmed it. After the Aspen Ridge Hotel, she hadn't gone to any restaurant downtown. The little blue dot showed her at an address in Cherry Creek, a high-end residential area. The dot stayed there from 11:40 p.m. until 2:58 a.m. Victor Palmer's address. Morning came with the brutal clarity of sunlight through blinds I'd forgotten to close. Rita had already left for work, or so she claimed in the hastily scribbled note on the kitchen counter. Early meeting. Talk tonight. Talk. Now she wanted to talk. I called my business partner, Jake. Something came up. I need the day. Everything okay, man? Jake's voice carried genuine concern. Not exactly. I'll fill you in later. I hung up before he could ask more questions. I showered and dressed methodically, my mind running scenarios like computer simulations. I needed evidence, something concrete beyond the GPS location. I needed to know what I was facing before confronting Rita. The coffee shop across from Meridian Pharmaceuticals' downtown office wasn't particularly comfortable, but it gave me a clear view of the entrance. I sat by the window, laptop open to give the impression I was working, and waited. At 11:42 a.m., Rita emerged with two colleagues, laughing at something. My stomach twisted as Victor Palmer appeared behind them, his hand casually finding the small of Rita's back. It lingered there as they crossed the street toward a Thai restaurant. I stayed put, ordering another coffee. 2 hours later, they returned. This time, Victor's arm was around her shoulders, and she was leaning into him slightly. Nothing that couldn't be explained away as collegial friendship to the untrained eye. But I knew my wife, or thought I did. I watched them disappear into the building, then pulled out my phone and did something I'd been contemplating all morning. I searched Victor Palmer online, digging deeper than the corporate bio page. News articles appeared, mostly business announcements, nothing personal. Then a LinkedIn profile, also professionally sanitized. But a third-page Google result caught my attention. A Phoenix area news report from 3 years ago. Local business executive settled harassment claim with former employee. The headline read. The article was sparse on details, just that Victor Palmer, then at Phoenix Biotech, had settled out of court with a former marketing assistant who claimed he'd pressured her into a relationship, then threatened her job when she wanted to end it. The cold feeling in my gut solidified. This wasn't just about my wife's infidelity. She might be caught in something more sinister, a pattern of behavior from a practice predator. My phone buzzed. A text from Rita. Working late tonight. Don't wait up. I replied immediately. No problem. I've got plans with Jake anyway. The lie came easily, which scared me almost as much as what I discovered. But I needed time, and more information. I paid my bill and left, but not to go home. Instead, I drove to a small electronics store in the suburbs, where I bought a voice-activated digital recorder and a tracking app subscription for her iPad. I wasn't proud of these decisions, but the alternative, remaining in the dark while my wife potentially destroyed our marriage and her career, seemed worse. As I pulled into our driveway, I spotted our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Diaz, watering her plants. Kyle, haven't seen you in ages, she called, waving a gardening glove. Been busy with work, I replied with a forced smile. I meant to ask, does Rita have a new car? There's been a black Audi parked overnight a few times when you've been away. The last piece clicked into place. I hadn't been imagining things. Just a colleague, I said, my voice steady despite the grenade that had just been dropped. Thanks for keeping an eye out, Mrs. Diaz. The house felt different that night, like a stage set rather than a home. I moved through our space, placing the tiny recorder under the living room coffee table, where we usually had our discussions. Then I synced her iPad to my tracking app while it charged on her nightstand. Every action made me feel dirty, like I was betraying something fundamental. But I kept remembering Victor's hand on her back, the missing wedding ring, Mrs. Diaz's casual bombshell about the black Audi. I ordered pizza, cracked a beer, and waited. At 9:38 p.m., headlights swept across the living room wall. I heard Rita's key in the lock, followed by her voice, oddly cheerful. "Kyle, you still up?" Rita called as she entered, setting down her purse. "In here," I answered from the couch, keeping my voice neutral. She appeared in the doorway, looking far too put together for someone who'd worked late. Fresh lipstick, hair recently fixed. "Pizza? Save me any," Rita asked, kicking off her heels. "Help yourself." I gestured to the box on the coffee table, right above the hidden recorder. She grabbed a slice and sat beside me, closer than she had in weeks. Something was off. "How was your day?" Rita asked, her tone suspiciously light. "Productive. Yours?" "Exhausting. The Brookfield account is going to be huge, but the paperwork is endless." She sighed dramatically. "Victor thinks we might need to fly to Chicago next month for the rollout." There it was. Chicago. For how long? I asked, maintaining my poker face. "Just 3 days. Maybe 4. Rita put her hand on my knee. "I was thinking, while I'm gone, maybe you could finally build that deck you've been talking about. Surprise me when I get back." The calculation was so transparent, it was almost insulting. Give me a project to keep me busy and unsuspecting while she spent a long weekend with Victor. "Maybe," I said noncommittally. "When's the trip?" "November 12th through 15th. Victor just booked the flights today." I nodded, filing away the dates. Speaking of Victor, he seems pretty hands-on as a boss. Rita's expression flickered, just a microsecond of alarm before her smile reasserted itself. "He's just very invested in his team's success. He's been a great mentor." "I'm sure he has." I took a long pull from my beer. "Mrs. Diaz mentioned seeing his car here a few times when I was in San Francisco for that conference last month." The color drained from Rita's face. "What?" "No, that's—" She stopped, regrouped. "Oh, he dropped off some samples for me to review. It was just for a few minutes. Must have been some detailed samples. Mrs. Diaz said the car was there overnight." Rita stood abruptly. "Are you spying on me now? Having the neighbors report my movements?" "Just repeating what our 70-year-old neighbor voluntarily mentioned," I said calmly. "Why are you getting defensive?" "I'm not defensive. I'm tired of your insinuations." Rita's voice rose. "Ever since that stupid party, you've been acting paranoid." I set down my beer and looked her directly in the eyes. "Rita, is there something you want to tell me about you and Victor?" She held my gaze for 3 long seconds before looking away. "There's nothing to tell. He's my boss. I respect him. That's it." The lie hung in the air between us, almost tangible. "I'm going to bed," Rita announced, grabbing her purse. "I have an early meeting tomorrow." As she headed upstairs, I noticed she'd taken the iPad from the nightstand. The tracker would let me know exactly where she went with it. The game was changing. I wasn't just gathering evidence anymore. I was hunting. The next morning, I checked the tracking app. Rita's iPad had made a midnight trip to an address in downtown Denver, a high-rise apartment building where I knew Victor owned a penthouse. She'd returned home at 3:17 a.m., while I pretended to sleep in the guest room. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I went to work as usual, focusing on a logo redesign for a tech startup while part of my mind processed what I'd learned. At lunch, my phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Kyle Mercer?" A woman's voice, professional but cautious. "Speaking. Who's this?" "My name is Allison Reeves. You don't know me, but—" She hesitated. "I used to work at Meridian Pharmaceuticals. I saw you at the Aspen Ridge Hotel the other night, watching your wife with Victor Palmer." My grip tightened on the phone. "How did you get my number?" "Your design company's website." "Look, I normally wouldn't get involved, but I've been where your wife is. Victor has a pattern." The Phoenix article flashed in my mind. "The harassment settlement in Arizona. You know about that?" She sounded surprised. "Then you know what he does. Targets women with potential, mentors them, promotes them, then makes it personal. When they try to back out, their careers suffer. I was lucky. I had documentation, texts, witnesses. Most women don't." I swallowed hard. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because last week, I saw him with your wife at Emerson's bar." She looked happy, like I once did. Allison's voice softened. "Before I realized the price." "What do you suggest I do?" I asked, surprising myself with how steady my voice remained. There's a file. Personnel complaints that never made it to HR. I saved copies before I left. Meet me at Riverside Coffee tomorrow at 2. You deserve to know what you're dealing with. After we hung up, I sat motionless. This wasn't just about Rita's betrayal anymore. She might be caught in something more calculated, more dangerous. That evening, I retrieved the voice recorder while Rita showered. The audio confirmed my suspicions. 3 calls to Victor, including one where she assured him Kyle doesn't suspect anything, and Chicago is all set. But it was the last call that froze my blood. The contract review is complete, Rita had said. Once announced, the stock options alone will be worth millions. No one's looking at the research data. We're clear. Victor's tinny voice replied. That's my girl. Brookfield will never know the difference. Once the merger goes through, we'll be untouchable. This wasn't just an affair. It was corporate fraud, possibly endangering patients' lives. And Rita was in the middle of it. I met Allison Reeves the next day, a sharp-eyed brunette in her early 30s with a wary look of someone who'd seen the underside of corporate politics. Here's everything I have, she said, sliding a thumb drive across the table. 6 women in 3 years. All promising careers. All fast-tracked by Victor. All ended badly. The last one attempted suicide. I stared at the small device. Why didn't this come out during your settlement? Non-disclosure agreement. Allison's mouth twisted. Plus, the company buried it to protect their star executive. But that's not all. She leaned forward, voice dropping. Victor's made his career cutting corners on drug testing. The Brookfield deal? The new antibiotic line? My contact in the lab says the efficacy data is manipulated. Side effects underreported. My mind raced. Rita's late-night call made more sense now. They're falsifying research data. Wouldn't be the first time. But the scale is bigger, much bigger. Allison looked around nervously. Your wife is handling the contract work, right? She's either being used as an unwitting accomplice or she knows exactly what she's doing. I finished. I drove home in a daze, the thumb drive burning a hole in my pocket. This was no longer just about saving my marriage. It was about preventing a potential public health disaster and criminal conspiracy. At home, Rita was packing a small suitcase. She froze when she saw me. You're home early, she said, her voice artificially bright. What's with the suitcase? I asked, already knowing the answer. Oh, just a quick overnight to Chicago. Preliminary meetings before next month's big trip. The lie came smoothly. I was going to text you, like you texted me about the Brookfield contract, or the manipulated research data. All color drained from her face. What are you talking about? I know everything, Rita. About you and Victor, the affair, the fraud. I have the voice recordings, the GPS tracking, everything. Her expression shifted from shock to calculation in seconds. Kyle, you don't understand. It's complicated. Explain it then. Explain how you're helping push through a dangerous drug for profit. It's not dangerous, she snapped, dropping the pretense. Just slightly overstated in its effectiveness. Everyone does it. And everyone sleeps with their boss too? I asked coldly. Rita's eyes hardened. Victor sees my potential. He's making my career. At what cost? Your integrity? Our marriage? People's safety? She zipped up her suitcase with a decisive gesture. I'm not having this conversation now. I'll be back tomorrow. We can talk then. If you walk out that door, I said quietly, I'm taking everything I have to the FDA. Tonight. Rita froze, hand on the suitcase. You wouldn't. Try me. I held her gaze steadily. People could die, Rita. For the first time, I saw a flicker of doubt in her eyes. For a long moment, Rita and I stood in a silent standoff. The suitcase between us might as well have been a canyon. You're bluffing, Rita finally said, but uncertainty crept into her voice. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screen, the FDA whistleblower hotline, ready to dial. I've never been more serious about anything in my life, I said calmly. People over profits, Rita. That used to be something we both believed in. Her facade cracked. You don't understand what's at stake. This deal is worth millions. My career, my future. What about the patients who will take medication that doesn't work? Or worse, hurts them? The side effects are minimal, she argued, but wouldn't meet my eyes. Just some data, adjustments. Fraud, I corrected. And I have Allison Reeves' file to back it up. Rita's eyes widened. Allison, That vindictive. She kept receipts. I interrupted. On everything. The harassments, the affairs, the falsified reports. I'm guessing the FDA will find it very interesting. Rita sat heavily on the bed. For the first time since this began, she looked afraid. Victor will destroy you, she whispered. He has connections everywhere. Let him try. I've already backed up everything to secure servers. If anything happens to me, it all goes public. I hadn't actually done that yet, but she didn't need to know. What do you want? Rita asked, defeat coloring her tone. First, you call Victor. Tell him you're not coming tonight. Make up any excuse. He'll be furious. Not my problem. Second, tomorrow morning, we're meeting with my attorney to discuss divorce terms. A flicker of something, relief, crossed her face. That's it. Third, I continued, you have a choice to make. Help me expose what's happening with the Brookfield contract, or I'll do it alone and let justice take its course with both of you. Rita stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. When did you get so ruthless? When my wife decided our marriage vows were negotiable, I replied evenly. Make your call, Rita. I'll be in the living room. I left her sitting there, trembling hands reaching for her phone. In the hallway, I leaned against the wall, heart hammering. I'd never confronted anyone like that before, never laid down ultimatums. But somewhere in the wreckage of my marriage, I'd found my backbone. 15 minutes later, Rita emerged. It's done. I told him I'm sick. And he's not happy. But he believed me. She looked exhausted. Now what? Now we get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. As I headed to the guest room, Rita called after me. Kyle, for what it's worth, I'm sorry. I didn't turn around. Sorry you did it. Or sorry you got caught. Her silence was answer enough. Morning arrived with determined sunlight and the weight of decisions to be made. I'd slept surprisingly well. The clarity of purpose had removed the cloud of doubt hanging over me for weeks. Rita sat at the kitchen island, nursing coffee, still in her robe. She looked like she hadn't slept. I've been thinking, she said as I entered, about your offer. I poured my own coffee. And I'll help you. With the Brookfield evidence. Her voice was steady. But I need something in return. Besides me not turning you in immediately. I asked, eyebrow raised. Immunity, Rita clarified. Some kind of whistleblower protection. I can't go to prison, Kyle. I considered this. That would be up to the authorities, but cooperating voluntarily looks better than getting caught. She nodded, then pushed a flash drive across the counter. I downloaded these last night. Internal emails, the original research data versus what was submitted to the FDA. Everything. I stared at the small device. Why would you keep evidence of your own wrongdoing? Insurance, Rita said simply. Victor doesn't tolerate failure. I needed leverage if things went south. Smart, if coldly calculating. I pocketed the drive. There's something else, she continued. Victor's not working alone. The chief medical officer and at least 2 board members are involved. This goes higher than you think. Why tell me this now? Because once this breaks, Victor will try to make me the scapegoat. A bitter smile crossed her face. I was convenient, in more ways than one. The word stung, but I pushed past it. My attorney will meet us at 10. Then we go to the FDA together. Rita's phone buzzed insistently. Victor's name flashed on the screen. She glanced at me, then declined the call. He's getting suspicious, she said. We need to move fast. As if on cue, the doorbell rang. We froze, exchanging a look of alarm. Through the peephole, I saw 2 men in suits standing on our porch. Not police. Their posture was wrong, too casual but alert. Ms. Mercer? We're associates of Victor Palmer. One called through the door. He's concerned about you and asked us to check in. Rita grabbed my arm, her fingers digging in. Don't open it, she whispered. Victor's associates aren't the friendly type. I nodded toward the back door. Get dressed. Grab only what you need. My car's in the garage. For once, Rita didn't argue. She disappeared upstairs while I kept watch on our uninvited visitors. When one stepped off the porch to peer through our front window, I knew we had minutes, not hours. Rita reappeared in jeans and a sweater, a small bag clutched to her chest. I led her through the kitchen to the garage, hitting the remote start on my SUV as we moved. Stay down, I instructed as she slid into the passenger seat. The garage door opened, revealing clear street behind us. As I reversed rapidly, I glimpsed one of Victor's men rushing around the side of the house. Too late. We were already gone, the the flash drive secure in my pocket, and a storm about to break over Meridian Pharmaceuticals. We spent the next 3 days in a safe house arranged by Allison's attorney. Rita cooperated fully with the FDA investigators, walking them through the falsified research data, the approval process shortcuts, and Victor's web of corporate manipulation. "You've saved lives today," the lead investigator told her after a grueling 6-hour deposition. The Brookfield antibiotic would have caused serious liver damage in certain populations. Rita nodded numbly, the weight of what she'd almost been part of finally sinking in. When we were alone, she turned to me. "I never thought it would go this far," she said quietly. "It started so innocently. Just a promotion, some attention from a powerful man. And then the lines got blurry. I finished for her. Until there weren't any lines left." Rita's eyes were hollow. "I kept telling myself it was normal in the industry, that everyone cuts corners. But people could have died, Kyle. I didn't offer absolution. That wasn't my place anymore." Early on the 4th day, our attorney arrived with breaking news. The FBI had raided Meridian Pharmaceuticals at dawn. Victor Palmer was in custody, along with the chief medical officer and 2 board members. The company's stock was in free fall. "What happens now?" Rita asked. "You'll testify when the case goes to trial," the attorney explained. "Your cooperation agreement protects you from prosecution, but your career in pharmaceuticals is likely over." Rita nodded, resigned. "And the divorce?" "The paperwork's ready," I said. "Clean break. No disputes over assets. I'm not looking to punish you, Rita. You never were the punishing type." A sad smile crossed her face. "That was one of the things I loved about you." Later that afternoon, we signed the divorce papers in our attorney's office. No drama, no tears, just the quiet conclusion of a chapter that had run its course. As we walked out, Rita paused. "What will you do now?" "I've been offered a position with a medical ethics design group," I said. "They need someone to make complex data more accessible to the public." "Seems fitting. You'll be good at that." She hesitated. "And personally?" I thought about the quiet strength I'd discovered in myself during this ordeal, the resolve I hadn't known I possessed. "I'm going to be fine," I said, realizing I actually believed it. Better than fine. For the first time in months, that wasn't a lie. 6 months after signing the divorce papers, I stood on the observation deck of the Denver Art Museum, watching the sunset paint the Rocky Mountains in shades of purple and gold. My new exhibition, a series of infographics explaining medical testing protocols to the general public, had opened to positive reviews. "Your work is making a difference," said a voice behind me. I turned to see Natalie Chun, the museum's curator and the woman who'd commissioned my exhibit. "That's the goal," I replied with a smile. Natalie joined me at the railing. "Have you seen today's news?" I nodded. Victor Palmer had been sentenced to 12 years for fraud and endangering public safety. The Meridian Pharmaceuticals case had triggered a wider industry investigation. Rita's testimony was crucial, I said. Without her cooperation, he might have gotten away with it. "Your ex-wife made a terrible mistake," Natalie observed, "but she did the right thing in the end." "People are complicated." I shrugged. Few are all good or all bad. The Meridian scandal had faded from headlines, but its impact remained. New legislation was pending to strengthen oversight of drug testing. My infographics explaining the importance of these measures have been shared widely online. "Are you ready for dinner?" Natalie asked, her hand lightly touching mine. "The reservation's at 8. Our relationship was new, cautious. We've been colleagues first, then friends. The romantic part had developed slowly, built on mutual respect and shared values. The foundation I now knew was essential." As we walked to the restaurant, my phone buzzed with a text from Rita. "Saw your exhibit online. Important work. I'm proud of you." I didn't need her pride, but I appreciated the sentiment. According to our mutual friends, she'd moved to Seattle and was working for a patient advocacy group, using her pharmaceutical knowledge to help people navigate treatment options. She was making amends in her own way. "Everything okay?" Natalie asked, noticing my expression. "Yes," I said, pocketing the phone. "Just the past checking in." "And the present?" She smiled. I took her hand, feeling grateful for second chances and hard-won wisdom. The present is right where I want to be. Life had taught me that sometimes losing what you thought you wanted opens the door to what you actually need. The man I'd become through adversity was stronger, clearer, and more authentic than the one who'd stood invisibly in a hotel ballroom 6 months earlier. That man had been a footnote in someone else's story. This one was writing his own.